Great day, everybody. Omar Muhammad here, helping you improve and progress in business and in life. My co-host over there, Walter Cotton the third. So, I know you probably know me and you probably know him individually, but collectively, we're the solution zone and we have some other things that we're working on as well. Just quickly about me, for those who are not aware of who I am a resource at a university where I work with entrepreneurs at all levels, mainly individuals at the school and external to the school. Work with government contractors, formerly incarcerated individuals, women vets, and of course the students, faculty, and staff on campus. As an entrepreneur, I'm the entrepreneur. I help solve problems. And they call me Mr. Entrepreneur. And over there, depending on where you are, over there is my good friend Walter Cott III, Mr. Government Contractor. Anything, I mean, anything that you want to know about government contracting, that's the guy to go. You know what I'm talking about. That's the guy to go to. So, Walter, you want to give a quick introduction of who you are?
At a very high level, I'm a service disabled veteran, business owner,
Thank you for your
turned
service.
advocate for a season where I was blessed to find my way to a solution that cracked the hard problem of capability and capacity for my firm, which gave me a solution that allowed me to dynamically engineer past performance, capability, and capacity, and led me to acquire my first $8 million contract. And I recognized that the government isn't really good about informing us about these
Yeah,
pathways. And I knew that
absolutely.
my fraternity that was still back in boots weren't going to find their way to the solution unless I got out there and advocated for them, dropped some breadcrumbs. So I worked together with the American Legion and the Small Business Administrations. It was the Veteran Procurement Liaison Office at that time. And we went around the country, evangelized the good news about joint venturing, which was
Mhm.
not very common in federal contracting at that time, and how veterans could use that to dynamically create capability and capacity. To make a very long story short, we utilized that approach and evangelized that capability to every veteran that would listen. And that helped us move the needle in contracting for disabled veterans, which was at about $750 million when we jumped into the advocacy game. It was well north of $19 billion when we left the advocacy game. And myself and a small band of brothers, including people like Billy Jenkins, Joe Sharp. I'm not going to do a lot of name dropping, but I want you to know that I was a part of a tribe. I didn't do all of those things by myself. We were able to help a number of deserving men and women who gave their pound of flesh for this nation put themselves in a position where they could capture some generational wealth and then self-determine moving forward. And as you can imagine, going through that process, I learned a whole lot about the nooks and crannies, right? The hidden secrets in government contracting, and
Yeah.
created a number of very important relationships that still today allow me to move the needle in a way that other advisors can't. So when I
Mhm.
left my advocacy space or season and went back into my private practice, which I have a boutique consulting firm that provides advising, we have been doing a yeoman's job, still helping him and her who bore the battle and wear my social uniform, very important
Mhm.
consideration,
Absolutely.
achieve generational wealth through federal contracting. So that's from a 30,000 foot perspective, who I am.
All right, good deal. You heard through me and Walter, you heard the word solution. So this show is about solutions. So we're going to identify problems and we're going to share with you some solutions. But I thought, Walter, that we can really just start with maybe start with the basics of talking about government contracting as the government, federal government, as a pathway for a book of business. And then, who are those players in it? I think we should probably start there to kind of give people an opportunity to learn about our knowledge base, if you will. So if we
Can
want
I
to,
can I make a recommendation? Because as you know, and everybody with a pulse right now
yeah,
recognizes that the small disadvantaged business, the minority business, let's
yeah,
call it what it is,
yeah,
right, is under an aggressive attack right now.
okay,
And although we will deal primarily with solutions, I think it would be
yeah,
important to frame, for those in the audience who haven't got the mail, haven't got the
yeah,
memo, the
absolutely,
challenge, or dare I
mhm,
say, attack that
yeah,
the MWBE community is under right now. What do you think about that as
yeah,
an
yeah.
idea?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's jump right into, we talk about problems, and this is a big problem. This what's happening with the Minority Business Development Agency, MBDA, as well as with the 8A, the SBA, what's really happening with that. And what are people doing, especially those who are receiving funding from those agencies. So yeah, let's jump right into the heart of the matter, the problem, and let's come up with some solutions that we can really follow up with, or the listeners can
Well,
follow up
from a heart of the matter perspective, and I'm stealing information from social media right now when I use this terminology,
with.
but it appears that we are in a fifth generational war
Mm,
on Black and brown businesses. And for
yeah.
those of you who don't know what a fifth generation war is, that's a information war, right? It's a war for the gray matter between the head, and the organizations that are apparently very well funded have made it their business to leverage the Fifth Amendment, and specifically a clause in the Fifth Amendment of equal protection, and use that clause to dismantle any program that has a race-based component to it. So,
Right.
for example, the Minority Business Development Agency, you all
Yep.
know, is
Hmm.
currently going through a lawsuit
Yeah.
where the agency has been sued just for its namesake. And
Yeah.
ironically, other than allowing the case to proceed forward, the judge took a proactive step in that case and issued a preliminary injunction against the Minority Business Development Agency
Yeah.
to not discriminate against the plaintiffs in
Hmm.
that particular case. So what does that, mean? That legal ease mean? It
Yeah.
very simply means that the Minority Business Development Agency is operating under the restriction that they can no longer exclusively focus on minority businesses. If they
Right.
do, based
Yeah.
on the judge's injunction, they would be found to be in contempt of court. So, in
Mm.
essence, what they've done in that particular area is basically emasculate the Minority Business Development Agency. Now, the case still is moving through the courts, and if history is any predictor of the future, right? We've had previous, right? This isn't our first rodeo, right? We've
It's
had
not. Right.
previous actions like this where the government was responsible for supporting our interests, like, for
Right.
example, in the DOD versus Rothy case, which actually
Mm.
took the small disadvantaged business contracting program and emasculated it, right? We can probably expect the government to produce a similar defense in this particular instance. Now, if you extrapolate that case out to some of the other cases, and we're seeing it all over, right? There's an erosion of diversity, equity, and inclusion on the
We're going
enterprise
away.
side of the equation.
Yeah.
I mean, some
Yeah.
of our bellwethers, right? The
Yeah.
leading
Yeah.
leadership in diversity and inclusion at major corporations are jumping ship, right? Why are
Yeah.
they jumping ship?
Yeah.
Because the market isn't there, the support from the corporations isn't there. We recently had another lawsuit against the Harvard, right? You guys were a part of that, or at least you heard it in the popular media, where they found that affirmative action, right, was no
I do it.
longer acceptable. So
Yeah.
all of these little enablers that were put in place to help uh, socially disadvantaged individuals, people
Hmm.
of color, achieve some level of advantage,
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. I mean, it's
they're
just
being
slapping us in our
dismantled.
face. Yeah,
They're just
absolutely.
taking them right in front of our face. And
Yeah,
the most recent action, well, actually, the most recent court action was the case against the 8A program, right?
yeah.
Where the judge found that the SBA's 8A program could no longer use the rebutable presumption that this group of
Come on.
individuals that they
Yeah,
defined as socially disadvantaged are socially disadvantaged. And so now the
yeah,
agency is going through a whole backpedal, right, to reinvent itself. They actually put a moratorium, I think it was last week, on
yep.
receiving new applications
Yeah.
while they figure it out. And I've got a number of clients that are minority 8As, and they're being asked to deliver a new narrative to justify their existence. So it's
So Walter,
bizarro land.
hold on. So what does that mean? New narrative. What does that mean from an SBA's, the Small Business Administration's landscape, if you will?
Well, from the SBA's perspective, they had a category or group of communities that they said,
Yeah,
we have defined these communities as socially disadvantaged. So if
yeah.
you are a part of that particular race, whether it be Black, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
Native American,
Yeah.
whether it be a Pacific Island Indian, you are automatically socially disadvantaged. What the
Mm-hmm.
judge said in this case was, well, you can't use a broad brush like that, right? What you have to do is you have to have the individual participants within that community demonstrate that they individually experience racism.
So I didn't hear you. You said what? What demonstrate?
Demonstrate, yes, absolutely
Wow.
demonstrate. And where this becomes a real challenge, and there's a sneaky sucker punch coming from out of the blue, is because the definition, or should I say measure, of discrimination was recently changed by an unintentional action in the Byron Allen versus Comcast
Mm,
lawsuit. And this
mm,
was a Supreme Court level decision where
yeah.
the Supreme Court said, yesterday's measure to determine whether or not you had been discriminated against was likely to include your race.
Right.
The Supreme Court sent Byron Allen's case back down to the lower court with a requirement that Byron Allen demonstrate that but for his race,
Yeah.
the discriminatory action wouldn't have taken place. The challenge for those of you who wear my social uniform and are within the sound of my voice is that's a
Yes.
precedence. It's the law of the land now. So yesterday's
Yeah.
measure, that's why affirmative action is being attacked so
Yeah.
aggressively now, because we've got a precedent.
That's
So
right.
yesterday's measure that you were discriminated against because it likely included your race now is a but for measure, and that's just a much higher watermark to have to overcome in
Yeah.
order to secure your just desserts.
Yeah. Yeah. For those individuals who are who are just hearing about this, and for those who have already heard about it, I mean, this is an opportunity to, do some research and be prepared. One of the things that we're about is, Walter is a master researcher. He understands this. We both play attorneys on TV. We're not attorneys, but I'm finding out Walter is an undercover attorney. And did you see how he pieced that together? Went from talking about the 8A, I'm sorry, talking about MBDA, talking about the lawsuit at MBDA, talking about the lawsuit at the SBA, and then leading down to Comcast and Byron Allen, and how he pieced that together to say, "Hey, y'all better keep your eyes open, because it's coming." And I'm hearing about these DEA agents, I mean DEA programs that these corporations, I mean, they laying people off. They laying people off.
You know,
So
another
that's
issue,
the
Omar, if I
elephant.
could interject
Jump in,
this, and
please.
this is for the audience to take note of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what we have to employ in this particular instance or situation is a we the people action. And I'm saying that we
Mm,
have to employ a we the people action because we
mm,
cannot rely on, our leaders to
mm,
take our interest and defend them. And I'll give you a perfect example that's coming out of my home state right now, which is Florida, and all of the information where
yeah.
they are going through the revisionist history, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Slavery benefited Black people. What?
Yep. Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
But it's
Nonsense.
not so much the fact that they're going through this process to try to reimagine history for their benefit. The
Mm-hmm.
real challenge that I see is that we're not hearing our leadership come to the table, right? We're
Yeah.
not hearing our leadership from our academic institutions come to the
Mm-hmm.
table and say not no but hell no, right?
Yeah.
We're not
That's right.
seeing that type of response to this action. And on the contracting side of the equation, at least as it relates to the federal government, we're seeing the same kind of apathy from people that are in power, that are supposed to be our advocates. It's almost as if
Right.
they're sticking their head in the sand, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
expecting the storm to blow over them. And
Right.
from my humble perspective, that requires him and her who has an interest in this particular arena to study yourself approved, because
Mm-hmm.
you will have to advocate for your own interest. And this is in a season where our good president has put well over $100 billion on the street in his small disadvantaged business increase promise, and he included
Mm-hmm.
Black and brown business owners. So if
Yeah.
you are an individual that has an interest in this space, it is a robust season for you to participate in it. But you are
Yeah.
going to have to make sure that you are ready for the fight, and it is going to be, to some degree, a fight to maintain
Yeah.
your rights.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. I don't hear a lot of people. I'm in Maryland. I don't hear the legislators, we need to, even though we don't need another town hall meeting, but they didn't even say anything about a town hall meeting. Or this is what I'm doing as a representative in the United States Congress. I mean, we're not hearing that. And for those individuals, who are in positions that understand what's happening, are not saying anything. So it's like, I agree. We, the people, have to move forward to make sure we give opportunities to those. Well, we help educate individuals and give them the opportunity to take advantage of the solutions. And that's what this is about. The solution zone is all about solutions. We're not going to come on here and just talk about problems. Yeah, we're going to highlight the problems. We're also going to talk about the solutions that individuals can take. So Walter, let's jump to some of those solutions. Let's talk about some of those people that wear your uniform, your social uniform. Those service disabled vets, and the economic disadvantaged women, business owners. Let's talk about. I mean, those are kind of our superheroes, heroes, right? Yeah, heroes. Yeah, that can.
Heroes, Hurons, he,
Yeah.
she, just don't call them late for dinner.
Yeah.
Your point resonates very
Yes.
strongly. And for
Yeah.
those of you who are in the audience who are service disabled veterans, or you're economically disadvantaged woman-owned businesses, the good news for you is that the federal government, or should I say, the attackers, have not been able to penetrate your program. So there is
Mhm.
still a robust contracting program out there for service disabled veteran and women-owned businesses. And as a matter of fact, in this season, with the reduction in small disadvantaged business activity, you all become the de facto standard, right? You went from position A1 to position A, and the federal government is still, Omar, correct me if I'm wrong about this, the largest single customer in North America that buys everything you can imagine.
Everything. That's where I wanted to start, but I'm glad we're here. We ended up back here, and they buy everything. It's a
And the
pathway to a
beautiful
book of
thing,
business.
and the beautiful thing for those of you that are service disabled veteran and women-owned business, there is still rule of law authority that produce a competitive advantage for you to compel the federal government to do business with you. As a matter of fact, if you look at the Small Business Act, it says in unambiguous terms that it is the policy of Congress to use small businesses in the acquisition of goods and services for the federal government to the maximum extent practicable. So now they've pulled the small disadvantaged business community back, but they have not pulled the woman-owned, the economically disadvantaged woman-owned business, the hub zone community, or the service disabled veteran community back. So as long as that rule of law exists, wink, wink, and I'm winking because who knew that these lawsuits were going to come and prevail, right? Yesterday, everybody was fat and happy. La, 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 I could take my time. Today, we need to operate with a sense of urgency. So those of you that own those preferences, you all need to get out of the mustard so that we can catch up, because there's nothing to guarantee that next fiscal year they're not going to come for you, right? You know, what's that old poem? You know, they first came for the priest, and I was not a priest, so I said nothing, right? You know, then they came for the reporters, and I was not a reporter, so I said nothing, and then we heard nothing more.
Yeah.
So this is the time to take this call to action, and Omar and I have decided to combine our forces because you know the brother didn't do himself the kind of service that I would have done about his illustrious history as it relates to a soldier that's been on the front line for Black and brown businesses, blocking and tackling and getting it done. This brother's been doing it for over 19 years. And I would submit to you that he's probably seen just about everything that could be seen from
Absolutely.
our community. And now I understand that you're operating with a new mission to help the formerly incarcerated, returning citizens
Incarcerated. Yep. Those
participate in the
individuals.
program. So,
Have
you know, this guy has been running the mentor protege program for one of our historically Black colleges and universities. And not only has he been running it, but he's got 14 non-imperi awards. And for those of you who don't know what that is in the DoD mentor protege space, that's like winning an Oscar or winning an Emmy. The brother didn't do it twice. Did it 14, I don't have it 14 times. So when it comes to a subject matter expert on the commercial side of this equation and what our people are really experiencing in the trenches, there is it over there? Yeah, there's none better than my good friend and partner Omar Muhammad. And so when we thought about putting together a show, should I say, that would provide you all a continuous source of information, I couldn't think of anyone better to partner up with than the handsome young gentleman who wears my same hairdo in the other frame.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, I definitely appreciate it. You know, sometimes, you know, people say it's hard to talk about yourself, and we got receipts to show it. And, you know, for me, it's about doing the work. doing the work and having an impact. And as you know, and probably you out there that's tuned in, I'm not a veteran, and I know people are probably saying, "Man, I missed out because I'm not a service disabled vet, and I'm not a economically disadvantaged woman, small business owner." So, Omar, Walter, what y'all talking about? Will I miss this opportunity, or can I get involved with this opportunity? So, for those individuals, Walter, who are not like you know, service disabled vet, or like some of the women business owners that we work with, are they knocked out of this opportunity?
Well, I have a spiritual leader. He's since passed on, and he had a great quote that he would often use, and I'm going to use it in this instance because it applies. And his name is Wayne Dyer, for those of you who want to Google Dr. Dyer. But what Dr. Dyer used to often say is that if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change.
Mhm.
And so for those of you who
I
are
love that.
out there listening and are puzzled with the question that
Yeah.
Omar just shared, hey, I'm not an economically disadvantaged woman-owned business. I'm not a service disabled veteran. This doesn't apply to you. I would say, au contraire, mon frere. We have the ability to utilize alliance structures, specifically the family
Mhm.
limited partnership. And I would submit to you that everybody that's within the sound of my voice is at least 1 degree of separation away from an Uncle Judd who served in the military and is not taking advantage of
Right.
his benefit. And everybody's
Yeah.
got a big mama, right, that would love to help their baby, right, get into some type of a business activity. And so
Mm.
through the utilization of a family limited partnership, you can create the authorization necessary for you to take your zeal, to take your desire, to take, let's call it piss and vinegar, right? And use it to go and attack these. I mean, the government is spending on average over $500 billion in discretionary contracting on an annual basis. They
Right.
currently have an obligation to make sure that at least 23% of that stuff goes to small disadvantaged businesses. They
Mm.
equally have a requirement that 5% of this, now pay attention now, because this is where it gets a little complicated.
Mhm.
5% of it goes to small and disadvantaged businesses. And that's the community that we talked about at the outset of the program that's being
Yeah.
disenfranchised by all of this court activity. But it doesn't
Yeah.
remove the obligation, it doesn't remove the goal. So, what kind of a
Mm.
solution can the government employ in that instance? The government can use what's known as double counting. What does that mean? That
Mm.
means that if you own the preference that has a contracting program connected to it, like service disabled
Mm.
veteran, and
Yeah.
you are also a small disadvantaged business, and you are also a
Yeah.
small business, and by default, a veteran owned, they get to take a goal retiring credit for each one of those preferences that you own. That's why you
Yeah.
moved from position A to position
Mhm.
A1 if you were a service disabled veteran
Yeah.
or an economically
That's right.
disadvantaged woman owned business.
Yeah.
So this is the
Absolutely.
season for us
Yeah.
to get our feces amalgamated and get out there and capture that foundational wealth that we
Mhm.
need to satisfy the needs of future generations. And let me be crystal clear about one fact. We
Mm.
live in a golden rule society. And what that means is
Mm.
he who has the gold
Yep.
rules.
Mm.
So
Rules
our first
all
mission
day long.
is to take the knowledge,
Yeah.
wisdom, and understanding that we have about this very rich, but still relatively virgin market opportunity and share it with those of you who have an interest in capturing some of that generational wealth.
Absolutely. So that's the call of action. The solution zone is about action. Again, we'll focus on some of the challenges that we see, the problems, and this is a big problem now. And we coming up with some solutions, to really help and impact, individuals, not just one, but hopefully multiple generations.
Can I hit him on the
So
one
that's
with it, Omar? James Brown said when
oh,
Prince said,
go
when he asked James Brown, man, how you do that thing you do? And James said,
ahead.
man, I just hit him on the one with it. I don't wait till the I hit him with your bad. So can I hit him on the one with it?
Hit him on the one.
So
Hit him on the one.
We have been around this arena for the better part of 2 decades, right? We're not new to this. We are true to this. Don't get that twisted. Right. And so we know that there have been a lot of imitators. They say that imitation is the right best form of flattery, right? We know that a lot of people have seen our work and said, I can do that. So you've got a lot of people out there that are providing consulting and advising services out there that, they're doing their best, and, big ups, Wakanda, all of that to them, but they're not prepared for this high wire act that we are sharing with you here. And as a result of that, Omar and I are taking our personal time to create lunch and learns for those of you who want to get a meal, right? You want to get, like my sister used to always say, come on, put your feet under my table and get a mouthful. We're doing lunch and learns that will allow you an opportunity to ask the questions that are rolling around in your mind that you need to get answered. And secondly, we're doing these private lunch and learns because we've been looking at the cancel culture out there, right? The algorithms that they're putting in many of these programs that we used to be able to use to get information to you. As soon as they realize, oh, y'all talking about doing what for the color people? You're banned. You're stopped. So there are things that we won't be able to share with you in this environment. That we will do a deep dive on in our lunch and learns. So there's going to be a URL floating across the screen that's going to give you the opportunity to click into the information about our lunch and learn sessions. And again, if it's something that fits for you, we'd love to see you in one of our classes. But let me be crystal clear. Dude over there in that other panel is a subject matter expert.
And likewise on this
his equal. So if you bring it, we're going to sing it. Let me just say it that way. If you bring it, we're going to provide you with actionable information that you can use to make wealth today. And I invite you to surf out to the URL. And as the kids would say, holla at your boys.
Absolutely. So this is the Solution Zone. Omar Muhammad and Walter Cotton III. We appreciate you for tuning in, listening to us. Now you heard us. Let's get to work, y'all. Until we see each other again, continue to improve and progress. Peace.
Ain't no other way to relate. I won't try to find no other way to say it. This here my happy belated. And we all know the baby is a favorite. Ain't no other way to relate. I won't try to find no other way to say it. This here my happy belated. And we all know the baby is the favorite, so this my happy belated. Say what you say. I'm always late to the party anyway, so this my happy belated. Usually regular day, but today celebrating cause it's my happy belated. Other way to relate. I won't try to find no other way to say it. This here my happy belated. And we all know the baby is a favorite. Ain't no other way to relate. I won't try to find no other way to say it. This here my happy belated. And we all know the baby is the favorite, so this my happy belated. Say what you say. I'm always late to the party anyway, so this my happy belated.